Hello and welcome to our program Violence Free World. My name is Kali Ikpe and we continue our quest for peace for motherland Nigeria. Well, I have a special guest in the house today on the program, Professor Chris Mustapha Nwaokobia. Almost I say Chukwudumebi, just so you know I know all of the names here.
That's correct.
Well, this is Violence Free World. I will get more of the questions coming up, but after the special report, be here, don't go away. The raging spate of violence in Nigeria has continued to defy all forms of approach at resolving it. Virtually all parts of Nigeria face this challenge, which ranges from banditry in the northwest, kidnapping on our highways, the IPOB menace in the southeast, killer headsmen in the southwest and the Middlebelt, to insurgency in the northeast. Particularly, the new trend of hostage taking for huge ransom, mostly borne by the government, has become rather too often and smacks of complicity from very high quarters.
We also have situations where children are kidnapped at different levels and at different intervals, and what happens at the end of the day is that we take money to go and beg them to release our children to us. So if you are now on a negotiation table, who determines the pace of where the pendulum swings to? Now if you look at all this, the question is, who is having upper hand as at now? Can we conveniently, boldly, truthfully say that our security is having an upper hand?
Public outcry against this trend has dominated national discourse, with some sectors resorting to self-help by way of vigilante groups, like in the case of Amotekun in the southwest and JTF in the north, a measure that is more or less official by now. The attendant fear and anxiety have brought about a rhetoric of fury as people trade accusations and counter-accusation as to who is responsible for the dastardly acts.
We have avalanche of laws in this country that criminalizes terrorism. We have avalanche of laws in this country that criminalizes kidnapping, abduction, and the like. Now, all these laws have not been put to place against any one of these people. To the best of my knowledge, look at the number of those that were arrested, and after arrest, they will be handed over to their governors as repentant terrorists. This is the only country in the whole world that have had that people will kill villagers, turn children to orphan overnight, sack a whole village, destroy properties that are worth millions of naira, destroy the economy of a state, and at the end of the day, the state itself, the security agencies will hand them over to their governors, and they will be received with high level of puppetry and joy and all those stuff like that.
Ethnic and religious profiling have regrettably featured too prominently in the blame game, and it is only serving to exacerbate the already bad situation.
Yes. I feel terrible when Nigerians, the average Nigerian, sees crime and criminality within a narrow prison of tribe or religion. It's in vogue now world over that Muslims are really the culprits. Xenophobia. Muslims are seen as terrorists because terrorism is a multi-billion-dollar industry all over. And Muslims, unfortunately, have where it takes because mainly the oil wells are with the Muslim countries. It's all about that.
Dialogue, it is record, holds a potential to ultimately resolve the spate of violence and consolidate our effort at national integration. But just how can we aggregate our opinions to make the dialogue measure work as we seek a violence-free Nigeria? Welcome back, Professor Chris Nwaokobia. Now, are you one of the persons who believe that Nigeria is on the precipice on the account of the insecurity as we're presently experiencing today?
Let me say clearly, first, Kali, Happy New Year. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you.
And let me say clearly, and very strongly so, that yes, the essence of governance is about protection of lives and property. Security is at the core of nationhood. But interestingly, I believe that things can work better. And so I see the cup as half full, not as half empty. I am not one of those who think that Nigeria is at the precipice. I'm one of those who, like the sage Obafemi Awolowo would say, that hope is the last milk in the human breast. I believe that things can get better. And then my mentor, one of my mentors, Madiba Nelson Mandela, once said that the time is always right to do right, and it's never late to have things done better. So I believe that part of what we're doing here is to nudge and urge government to do what is right, proper, and right. I think that Mr. President can do better. I think that things can be better handled. I think that the security architecture can be more enforced and better positioned to do better than they are presently doing. And I also believe that together with the masses of our country, because matters of insecurity is not necessarily only about leadership. Those who man our security will depend on information from the people from time to time. So I think that the time has come for us to not only challenge leadership to do what is proper, we also must take the responsibility, because those who dish villainy, those who dish violence, those who dish banditry, terrorism, and conflict live amongst people. They're not ghosts. They're not viruses that you need an electron microscope to see. And so, so long as they are humans and physical, there are people who interact with them. The time has come for all of us to realize that the primacy of lives and properties and the security of the human persona is of primacy, and we must do that which is right.
Going forward, now on the issue of the politics of terrorism, why, in your opinion, do you think it took the federal government this long to designate bandits as terrorists? In any case, who has it hurt that they're now designated terrorists? And now that they are terrorists, what is the difference? What difference does it make?
Kelly, I like that choice of word, the politics of terrorism. Sometimes you actually weave your words and you weave them nicely and deeply. But interestingly, let me say that when you live in a country with multifarious tendencies, a country whose historicity is checkered, a country whose tendencies are caught between the ethnic divides and religious divides, a country whose plurality goes to tendencies and emotions that are almost very deeply entrenched, where if you take certain steps, the Igbo man might say that you are against the Igbo. If you take certain steps, the Yoruba man might say that you are outrightly against the Yorubas. And if you take certain steps, the Fulani or the Hausas will say that you are anti-Hausa Fulani interest. Then you have a big problem. You must have a major, large heart, a sizably broad approach to issues. And that's perhaps why that choice of a word, politics of terrorism, may be apt. But let me say here that the man who is the deepest bruised by the terror in this country and banditry across our space is the person of Mr. President, because the buck stops at his decks. And that's where my heart goes out to him. Interestingly, it is better lit than never that the government have decided to in tandem with the resolution and the judgment or the proclamation of a court of law to declare the bandits terrorists, it's apt, better late than never. The time, like I said initially about my mentor, Madiba, Nelson Mandela, the time is always right to do right. And that's where we are. Now they have been declared terrorists. Now, interestingly, their access to funds will be curtailed. That's the chief benefit of declaring the bandits and the villains terrorists. Now, the international community is able to track and trace funds that accrue to them. Every bank account that receives money, as it were, that perhaps is meant for terrorism or is meant to fund banditry, will get a red flag, and the government is able, through the banks and the financial institutions, to halt access to funds for them. And then some of these special weapons, like the Tucano and heavy weapons, will be able, government will be able to deploy them, because terrorism is a fatal normative in criminality. Terrorism is as wicked as war. Terrorism is as wicked as mass murder. So governments are allowed to descend on terrorists with maximum force. So point number one, declaring them terrorists would give government access to monitoring every account, every funds and inflows that accrue to them or that goes that way. And then government is able to maximally deal with them. I think that, like I said, who cries or bemoans an action that has been taken? It's salutary to note that the government has finally decided to do that. And we would salute that effort. And we hope that with that, terrorism will be nipped in the bud. With that, the bandits and the terrorists who traumatize and tyrannize our space will be dealt with.
Well, Prof, we're going to come back to governance in a while. But now let's look at how well the media has managed the situation in terms of media reportage and the struggle to control the narrative by certain interested parties. People would want things said in certain ways just so their position or their actions or inactions can be justified. How would you see this media battlefield? How are you seeing it play out?
Kali, I'm a fan of the Nigerian media. From when I was a young boy, interestingly, my growing up, I became very active politically from a young age. Precisely when I was 18, I had a movement called Voice of the People in the beautiful town of Sapele in Delta State. And since then, I have caught head with the media. I've come to realize that the media has helped bring our country this far, that we're able to deal with the military and get them off our political kaleidoscope was sizably because the media was on our side. So the battlefield, the media battlefield, the narrative, as it were, we're where we are because largely the media, and permit me use this word, has been largely turned to a center of the richest takes the best score. Where money and wealth determines the narrative, and then where, unfortunately, some media houses and media owners must sing the song of leadership to get by. And so, oftentimes, rather than do what the media did when we fought the military, unfortunately, they are compelled, because politics have become the biggest business in Nigeria, they are compelled to dance around and dance the tune of political office holders. But interestingly also, I want to say that where we are is such that as we move towards 2023, the media must realize that they do not only owe the Nigerians a huge responsibility, but they owe God and indeed humanity a massive one, and which is to allow the people ventilate their opinion, and opinions that would either diminish or esteem those who seek to govern us come 2023. The time has come for the media to set the narrative right, because whether we like it or not, at the core of leadership and the ability to govern is fitness, the ability to think on your toes, on your feet, the ability to mobilize and galvanize the people, the ability to create ideas that will remove the country from a jangling discord of poverty to promise. And that should be the minimum for the media. We must drill, and ask questions that will locate the pathway to promise for our dear country. And that is a challenge I put before the media, because that is a challenge that a nation which after 61 years of nationhood, of independence, is still struggling to survive. That is the minimum that that nation demands. The media must sit up, stand up, and speak out. The media must galvanize public thought to how we must change the narrative in this country. Because it was Albert Einstein who said that attempting to solve a problem the same way it was created, or attempting to solve the same problem using the same narrative, is but insanity. I think that the time for our country to think differently and think out of the box is now.
So much more you need to tell me about. That will be after we return from this break. This is Violence Free World. I've been speaking with Professor Chris Mustafa Chukwudumegwu and Nwaokobia. We're going to come right back and continue with the conversation. If you'll be here, please be here. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is Violence Free World. Prof, still on the lane of politics of terrorism, there is a seeming official complicity from very high quarters. People who ordinarily should be solutions are now complicit in the adversity that we face. I used to call it corporate conspiracy. Whatever it is, these are good people supposedly clandestinely doing bad things. Governor Bello, particularly one of my interviews with him, said to me, Kali, this is politics. The kidnap of the Jange Part, the Kankara boys. So all of this is politics. Do you share in that resolve too?
Largely, Kali, Governor Yahya Bello is one young man that I respect his sagacity, his opinions, and his line of thought. He has come frontally as someone who thinks out of the box and who thinks on his feet. I say that advisedly because of his position on the COVID-19 situation, which is now being largely vindicated across the world. People are beginning to ask questions about the truism, about the conspiracies, about what COVID truly represents. Now, regarding the insecurity and this monumental and huge kidnaps, abductions and all that, Kali, the witch cried last night and the child dies this morning. Kali, I tell you that if you were to look at it, 300 kidnapped, removed from schools, 200 removed from schools, 150 girls abducted, 200 girls abducted, as though human beings were sardines, as though human beings were puppies that you could put in a box. And then you're tempted to ask yourself, who is behind this? Do you know what it costs to take care of a family of 10 in a week? And then how are they able to take care of 100, 200, 300?
400.
And then when you contemplate these issues, you find out that it is that big businesses or big individuals who are making profit from this. It's either that certain individuals are trying to undermine government and undermine leadership. And it's either Some people are desperate and determined to mess up leadership and mess up our country. But the time has come, like I said initially, for us to think out of the box. I have an extreme belief in Nigeria, and my faith in Nigeria is unalterable. My confidence in the fact that our generation can make this country better is non-negotiable. And so that's why I think that what we must do about the conspiracy and the politics of terror and terrorism is to ask bold questions. The time has come for us to unmask the big faces that fund terror. The time has come for us to ask strong questions, and the time has come for us to challenge leadership to do that which is needful.
Now, let's, even in my private discourse with you, I don't recall ever raising this issue of open grazing. I don't know how we missed saying that. Do you think the anti-open grazing laws, that's an issue I'd like you to speak to? And the next is the incendiary remarks from people, something I choose to refer to as rhetoric of fury. How is this helping our national unity question?
Let me say clearly, and very emotionally so, and passionately if you like, that in the 21st century, the question about open grazing is like trying to wake up a dead horse. It's atavistic and shibboleth. And I say this advisedly. Why in the 21st century would we, instead of having centers where you ranch and take good care of cattle and make them grow well and make them give you enough meat and enough feeds, why do we have to antagonize efforts that tries to compel those who are into animal husbandry to ranch? Who in his sane mind will canvass nomadic cattle farming? I think that the time has come for us to side with those who are saying no more to open grazing. It is against the 21st century reality. Let me even make you laugh, Kali. In 1968, 1969, long before I was born, the courts of law in this country declared open grazing atavistic, illegal, and shibboleth. I don't know why in the 21st century we're still held up to old norms. I think that the time has come for us to remove it from the confines of ethnicity and religion and speak to our brother the Fulani, speak to our brother the Hausa, and then you know that there are a few Igbos who also rear cattle. Speak to all of them. The time has come for us to ranch, to have colonies where we grow cattle, and ensure that not only is the synergy between farmers and animal husbands effective. You know, Kali, let me make you laugh. The crisis in Rwanda was simply about such normative. But when, after the genocide, and I pray we don't get to that point, they were able to realize that the Tutsis and the Hutus are one and the same people, and that they should be able to have a synergy. Kali, I'll give you an instance, that if you were to have farmers who have the right to their farms, and you have animal farmers who have ranches, they're able to have a symbiotic relationship. You take your weeds to the ranches or the cattle colonies, and they're able to fend for themselves. You have better yields in terms of agriculture, both plant and animals. I think that the time has come for us to raise the debate that makes ranching and cattle colonies the way to go rather than open grazing. And then, interestingly also, I think that the time has come for our country, and this is very important, for us to understand that whether you be Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Efik, Ibibio, Jokun, Tiv, whatever your tendencies are, we are one members of the human pilgrimage. Our tribe is the human tribe. Whether leadership has not been able to coalesce our humanity and effectively deploy it for progress is a challenge. But I think we can do better. I think that the time to speak to each other and have a handshake across our tendencies is now. No matter how we differ, the truth is that the melanin that cuts across us, the blood, is indiscriminate of religion or ethnicity. We're one people under God. I do also believe that if we walk together and swim through the waters of justice, equity, and fairness, if we open the waters of love over hate, if we galvanize our collective abilities and tendencies for progress, we shall have a country that sooner rather than later we'll be proud of.
Well, Professor Chris Nwaokobia, I think that's a very good place to leave it. You almost, or rather you preempted the end bit of the stuff, and you did it very well, so succinctly put. I'd like to thank you at this point.
The pleasure is mine, colleague.
Time to oblige me.
The pleasure is mine, colleague.
Thank you very
God bless Nigeria.
Hi. Well, this is With Violence Free World. My name is Kali Ikpe. Same time next week promises more if you endeavor to be here. Until then, please remember to remain on the road to a violence-free Nigeria. And thank you for watching.
No